We've got a monster exhibition game later today between Kentucky and Purdue, and I feel like I've got to say it. We're thinking about this contest completely wrong.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we're going to be talking about maybe another way that we could think about this exhibition game later on today between Kentucky and Purdue. I think we're thinking about it all wrong. I'll explain my thoughts later on in the show. Also on today's episode, Jaland Lowe apparently going to be back sooner than we thought. Really good news from Mark Pope. And honestly, if we get our healthy players back before the real schedule starts, I think that you start to view this Kentucky team very differently than where we currently think about them, at least without Jaden Quaintance and Jaland Lowe. And then to wrap up the show, something that I feel compelled to talk about, online discourse just as a whole, and then how it relates to sports and a recent passing of a sports figure that I really want to highlight here today. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. Want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. And if you are watching on YouTube, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the show. And if you are listening on podcast, I would also appreciate it if you subscribe there as well. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. So I think that we're thinking about this exhibition game between Kentucky and Purdue completely wrong. And I'll just go ahead and say it off the top. We are focused way too much on outcome, and we are not focused on the game itself. Definition here for you of what exhibition in this context means. According to the internet, exhibition is a game whose outcome does not affect a team's standing. Let me read that again slowly. It is a game whose outcome does not affect a team's standing. I'm not telling you to not be excited. I'm not telling you to not be invested. I'm not telling you to not want Kentucky to win. I'm invested. I'm thrilled that we are back and that we get this kind of game to start things off. And I want Kentucky to win. I want Kentucky to win this game. What I want to tell you here today is that this game does not impact the future in terms of win-loss. Far too many people that I've seen online are concerned about whether or not Kentucky or Purdue wins this game. I'm here to tell you that it does not matter because it objectively does not. Some people have criticized my expectations for the outcome of the game. I came into yesterday's conversation with Nick Arvin, host of Locked On Boilermakers, which I would encourage you to go watch that episode we just put out. I went into that conversation with Nick yesterday thinking that Kentucky in its current state is going to lose. And I still think that Purdue would be favored in this game if people were allowed to bet on it. Vegas was putting out odds, which I believe to be a rational response considering what Kentucky is dealing with. They are without arguably their two most important players on this roster. Let me repeat that for you again. Kentucky tomorrow against the preseason #1 team in the nation is without their two most important players, Jaland Lowe and Jaden Quaintance, the best defender and the only true point guard on the roster. That changes things. That definitely changes things. You can't argue it doesn't. You cannot argue that it does not shift things in Purdue's favor. But again, we are focused too much on win-loss, myself included. You have to look at this differently. I am considering this differently now after the conversation with Nick, because Purdue, based on everything that I can tell from Nick and other findings online about what Matt Painter has had to say about this, the Boilermakers are not going full throttle here. To quote Nick, they are more focused on 6 through 12. They're going to be focusing on their depth. Braden Smith's not going to play a ton in this game. TKR is probably not going to play a ton in this game. Oscar Clough is probably not going to play a ton in this game. but neither is Kentucky, just based on what Pope said. And he had media yesterday, and he reiterated kind of some of the things that he said about a week ago about this contest, and he added in the detail that he does, in fact, want to win. Here's the full quote. "We're going to take full advantage of it while trying to do everything we can to win, while still not leaving anything on the table in terms of learning about ourselves." Arvin again said yesterday that Purdue in these spots tends to focus on the depth of their team in these exhibition games. Win-loss does not matter. This is a learning moment for both teams, and that's what we should be excited about. Kentucky, for example, is going to learn a lot about Brandon Garrison's development. This is a high-octane offense, and even though they're probably not going to be throwing as hard of a punch as they possibly could, probably not scouting this game very heavily, BG is going to be out there, and he's going to have the opportunity to showcase some ability that maybe he didn't have last season. More consistency, I should say. I'm excited to see whether or not that happens. Kentucky and their team defense, I think, is definitely improved. But how improved? That'll be something that Kentucky learns about themselves. How their team defense works, how different rotations work, how they can stop one of the best offenses in the country, led by the best point guard in the nation. We're also going to learn about Aberdeen and Jasper, whether or not they can handle point guard duties while Jaland Lowe is out. Maybe that's something we have to keep tabs on later this season because, to be honest with you, we can't guarantee health throughout the course of the season. Just look at what happened last year with Kentucky's point guards. Can Aberdeen and Jasper step up? I'm excited to see if that happens. We can also learn about how awesome Trent Noah is because based on everything coming out of practice and based on what we've seen, kid's taking a huge leap forward. It is going to be really fun to watch, I think, in this scrimmage and in the future games to come, shooting the ball. Purdue is going to learn a lot about their rim defense, which I think is going to struggle in this game. We're going to learn a lot about Braden Smith in this environment, how he handles it, how Purdue handles it. Fans still care, then they should. I care. Purdue's going to learn about whether or not they have the wing defense to keep up with Otega, Owe, and Kentucky. Slashing, driving to the rim, cuts, can they stop that? Maybe not going to have a ton of success in this game. We'll see. What matters here is learning. That's what matters. So throw out what I say, what you say, what anyone says about whether or not Kentucky or Purdue is going to win this game. It does not matter. What matters is learning, having fun as a fan, and getting into the competitive environment with knowing that there's low stakes at the end of the day. You and I can love this. You and I can be excited about this while also realizing, hey, a loss tonight, a win tonight, it does not affect how our team moves moving forward. Like I mentioned on yesterday's show, I'll reiterate it again, knock on wood, the only way this could affect the season is if someone else goes down and gets hurt. Praying that doesn't happen, but that's the only way it could. So that's my take on it. I know some of you disagree in the comments. I know some of you don't like the fact that I think Purdue is going to win this game, but honestly, who cares? Why does it matter? Let's focus on what actually happens in this contest instead of win-loss, because I'll tell you, when it's going to really matter, it's going to matter in 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks when Kentucky's playing Louisville. That is the game. When we talk about win-loss, that's going to matter a lot more. So let's hold off on that until maybe the Cards, we make a trip up to the KFC Yum Center. All right, Jaland Lowe is going to be back a lot earlier than expected, at least according to Pope. There's a lot of really positive news here, and I just want to kind of talk positively about how this team could move if Lowe is back early, which he will be, it sounds like, and what this team looks like if JQ is back early, which, again, as I've said for months, I expect that to be the case. Before we dive into all of that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Mazda. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and they keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is, I think, Mark Pope in his press conference yesterday. Farming aura. I think that he was genuinely aura farming whenever he started talking about how there are 27 NBA players that played at the University of Kentucky in the league right now, most out of any college. And Kentucky set the record for the most three-pointers made last season. And he said that 27 divided by 3 is 9. And then he got up out of the press conference, which is really awesome. It's moving the game forward by continuing to remind us that while there will be ups and downs, I think here, Kentucky is putting into perspective what their goals are. They continue to make that known. We are pushing for a 9th national championship. It is moving Kentucky forward. They are moving towards that goal, and I could not be more excited to see just how exactly they try to achieve that, and if they achieve it. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning, and just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, continuing along here on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. I really appreciate you guys tuning into the show today. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, I would greatly appreciate it if you did so. Just for one person in particular out there, you know who you are. We are currently the 7th biggest Locked On College YouTube channel, where you have the 7th most subs out of anybody in the college channel. And there's, I think, 60, 70 of us now. First of all, thank you for those of you who have subscribed, and to try and maybe compete and push past some of these other players that were around. I want to let you know right now, Tennessee is the team that's right above us in terms of subs. Subscribe so we can beat Tennessee and maybe one other thing. Oh, LSU as well. I think that needs to be noted. Auburn as well. Subscribe. See if we can top those teams. Mark Pope said that Jaland Lowe is not really in a lot of pain. And because of that, because of how he's been progressing over these last couple of days, he's going to be back pretty quickly. He's going to hold Lowe out more than likely for one more week, just to be cautious. But we don't have any issues. I don't think it doesn't sound like with Jaland being ready for the season opener against Nicholls. And then obviously you've got Valpo, and then you've got Louisville. Unlike Lamont Butler last year, by the way, I want to note again, who really struggled, I think, with dealing with the pain of that shoulder injury throughout the course of the season. Props to him for toughing it out, because that is very, very difficult to do. J-Lo, though, could be back by Georgetown, the exhibition game next week. But again, you probably won't need him then. It takes any worry here out of this team super early. Any worry that you have about Kentucky and how they're going to play super early, I think it's thrown out the window. Having J-Lo for this game against Louisville, 3rd game of the season, is huge. You have your offensive engine back. You can play as high of a level of offense as you possibly can at this stage in the season, because you have all your best players available to you offensively, I think. Which I want to reiterate again, is one of the reasons why I think we're not going to see Kentucky at full strength on Saturday offensively against Purdue, because you don't have everybody. That's not a hot take. That is like an objective fact. Yet some people seem to disagree with that notion, which again I find that interesting. I do find that interesting. But let's just take J-Lo out of it for a second. Let's talk Jaden Quaintance. I have continued to reiterate on this show over and over and over and over again, just based on what we're seeing, based on what we're looking at, based on what Pope's saying, Jaden Quaintance is going to be healthy a lot sooner than Kentucky is letting on. Meaning he's not only going to be ready, but he's also going to be playing, sounds like, a lot sooner than we think. If Jaden Quaintance is back by Louisville, I want you to mark this down after seeing this team, and I know the stats weren't great from the blue and white game. I do not care. Watching this team, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, if Jaden Quaintance is back and ready to go, Jaland Lowe is playing as well. This team's fully healthy. They're going to go into the KFC Yum Center. They're going to beat Louisville. And I don't know how bad, but they're going to win that game. That is definitely going to happen. And let me tell you what else is going to happen. Kentucky's probably going to take some lumps in this non-conference slate, right? Louisville, Michigan State, North Carolina, Gonzaga, Indiana, St. John's. They're probably going to take a loss or two. It's just what happens. It's just college basketball. Good teams lose sometimes. We saw that last year with Kentucky at various spots. Clemson, Ohio State, teams Kentucky probably should have beaten, but yet they didn't. And then they beat Duke, and then they beat Gonzaga, and then they beat Florida, right? However, add full strength, fully healthy, improve defensively. To what degree, I'm not sure. Ken Palm thinks they've got the 4th best defense in the nation. I'll just go ahead and tell you, if they are half of that, Kentucky is going to steamroll through the majority of this slate. It's going to happen. They are deep. They are experienced at spots. They are athletic. They are fast. They are smart. And they've got a really solid X's and O's coach leading them, who just happens to be a great motivator, I think, as well. And if he lands Tyron Stokes, will probably prove himself to be a great recruiter as well. But Jaland Lowe being back is huge because it helps you offensively. If JQ is back, really helps you defensively. I don't see how Louisville beats that, barring an insane shooting performance from the Cards and Kentucky having an off night shooting themselves. Even then, I feel like Kentucky can do enough in this game, in that game, to make it extremely close. I think Kentucky wins if they're fully healthy. And it's like a definitive, Cats are going to win. Again, I don't know about how much. Can't put a number on it right now, but feel very confident with Kentucky moving forward. If all of the pieces are in place, I have high expectations for this year. And I'm sure a lot of you do too as well. So let me know what you think in the comments below. J-Lo back sooner than expected. JQ, I expect to be back early. You get them going, man. I think Kentucky's going to be very hard to stop. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about today is online discourse in sports. I'm going to tie this into kind of how it relates to Kentucky, but I really do feel it is important to highlight and discuss something that has happened recently, and just kind of not necessarily be open in terms of things that negative things that I'm dealing with, but encourage some specific things. If maybe there's stuff you are struggling with, or maybe somebody that you know. Before we dive into that, though, I do want to talk about our friends real quick at DoorDash. It is almost the weekend, thank goodness. And it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down for Kentucky. I think this is more of a calling my own shot tomorrow. I think Denzel Aberdeen is going to deliver in a big way. He stepped up in big time moments last year, having to start for Florida. Efficient, high scoring, distributing well. He was playing like a stud. And I think that tomorrow against Purdue, I think he's going to have himself a pretty good game. And I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, it's not a fluke. The performance that he's going to have is not a one-off. He will put Kentucky on a streak here. I think he's going to be somebody to really watch for. And just like Denzel Aberdeen, I'm calling it, it's going to deliver for Kentucky. DoorDash delivers for your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. You can stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here. It's rolling along, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if they win. That's right. You can pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I really love how FanDuel gives me a ton of different ways to play. I'm talking parlays, player props, watching the live lines during the games. I use it quite often to track my fantasy lineup, kind of play things hand in hand, keeps me engaged over the weekend, and it's really, really fun. And whether you're a casual fan or you really like diving to the stats like I do, FanDuel makes the game day experience just objectively so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com and download the FanDuel app today to get started. All right, wrapping up the show here. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. This is probably a more serious note, arguably the most serious that I will be here on this channel or have been about something, especially not related directly to Kentucky basketball. I've written this out carefully so that I can pace myself here to discuss this with you guys. Online discourse and sports. I want to remind you, this is something I said earlier in the show. I'm not telling you to not care about Kentucky, about whatever baseball team, about whatever pro team, about whatever sports team you pull for. I'm not telling you not to care. Caring is what makes this sport beautiful. I want you to care. I care. I enjoy this as much as you do. I've said that time and time and time again on the show. I love what I do. I love talking with you guys, and I love making this show I love you guys making this show what it is, and I love being a part of it. I almost cried during last year's final game recap after losing in the Sweet 16 because of how much I enjoy doing this and how awesome that team made me feel. And having never met any of them, I loved getting to cover that season. It was incredible. It was so awesome for me on a personal level, and I know it was awesome for a lot of you guys as well. I love this. You cannot let online discourse and sports as a whole consume you, good or bad. You cannot let it consume your life to an unhealthy level. Chess grandmaster Daniel Naroditsky passed away earlier this week at the age of 29. He won the 2007 Northern California K-12 Chess Championship, the youngest player ever to do so at 14. Naroditsky became the youngest published chess author upon the release of Mastering Positional Chess, Practical Lessons of a Junior World Champion. He earned his first GM norm in 2011, and at age 17, he was awarded the GM title in 2013 on a few occasions. He was also the number one rated player on chess.com in Blitz and Bullet. Long story short, he was brilliant. Daniel Naroditsky was a brilliant man. And the information about his death, which again was earlier this week, October 19th, is a little muddy, a little messy. Currently, police in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is where he resided, are trying to figure out whether or not the death was suicide or if it was due to an overdose. I'm here to tell you, regardless of that, it is very difficult to separate the passing of Daniel Naroditsky, and I do consider chess a sport, so I think this is relevant, the passing of Daniel Naroditsky with the, I would say, emotional abuse that he took online, specifically from former world chess champion Vladimir Kramnik, who beginning in October of 2024 repeatedly accused Naroditsky for over a year of cheating without substantial evidence. This is his livelihood that we're talking about. And a former world chess champion in Kramnik and an idol of Naroditsky continued to bash him online for cheating over and over and over again. And you may say that might not matter. I'm going to read here directly, actually, from the Wikipedia article. You can find so much information on this right now. It's a very hot topic in the news. Direct portion of the Wikipedia article here. Daniel Naroditsky said the allegations had taken a deep toll on him on a podcast hosted by fellow grandmasters Fabiano Caruana and Cristian Kirilian, I believe is how you pronounce his name, Kirilian. He is Romanian. Very difficult to pronounce those names sometimes. He called Kramnik's campaign a, quote, sustained, evil, and absolutely unhinged attempt to destroy my life, end quote, adding, quote, he is trying to ruin my life. He's trying to inflict emotional harm, physical harm on me. He knows exactly what he's doing, end quote. In his last live stream on October 17th, 2025, in which he appeared visibly distressed, he expressed feelings of people assuming, quote, the worst of intentions, end quote, if you were to start playing well off stream. This was an attack by a former idol that it wasn't just from Kramnik directly. It was all the people who support Kramnik or believed that Naroditsky was cheating. And he was bashed unlike anything I guarantee you could ever fathom by thousands of people for over a year. I, on this show, have received my fair share of negative pushback, some of which I find funny, some of which I don't care about, some of which have been death threats. That's just the reality of it. People are going to be crazy online. But we have to be better about how we interact with each other, especially when it comes to sports discourse. This is such a sad thing to see happen, to see Naroditsky pushed to the brink emotionally by a former idol and so many people on the internet just constantly, belligerently abusing him emotionally. And it's tough. There is a mob mentality. There is an us versus evil mentality that can be pushed past what is healthy far too often online. The space, I think, especially on places like Twitter, is unhealthy. Regardless of your opinion about whether or not you should give any credence to what any low-life loser has to say on X, or if you should ignore it entirely, that any press is good press, you cannot deny that far too often people feel comfortable lashing out over things that in the end don't affect a majority of our personal lives to the degree that their comments almost command they should. We need to be better about how we interact with each other because it can lead to stuff like this. Again, right now, police are investigating, trying to find out the exact details of what exactly has gone on here. But overdose or suicide aside, you cannot separate the passing and the abuse, emotional abuse. This takes a toll on a person. I guarantee it. October is National Depression and Mental Health Screening Month. If you are struggling, I'm here to tell you, talk to someone. Talk to someone, anyone, friend, family member, acquaintance. Talk to someone. If online discourse in relation to Kentucky, in relation to something political, in relation to something that is bringing you down, period, I would encourage you to do two things: to step away from it, don't feed into it, and to talk to someone if it is affecting you to that level. In the description of today's show, I'm providing a couple of links to resources, one of which is the crisis text line for 24/7 mental health support, and then the SAMHSA, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, a link to that website as well, where you can find resources to be referred to and find treatment, multiple helplines for, again, mental health and substance abuse. You can also call or text 988 if you are struggling with suicidal thoughts, emotional distress, or depression, or if you just need someone to talk to. Far too often, I feel like in this space, people can go at each other's throats for what, at the end of the day, is just a game. For a lot of us, it's just a game. For some of us out there, it is our livelihood. For the people that cover it, for the people that play it or perform. And it's never as serious as people make it out to be. And just to reiterate something here, you can't let this consume you. You can't. And again, I'm not telling you not to care. I care. I love this. But there comes a line. You have to draw a line somewhere. And we lost a amazing, brilliant player in the game of chess. And based on what I can tell, a lot of emotional abuse played a part in his passing. At the very least, played a part, if not the sole reason. Talk to someone. If you are struggling, talk to someone. If this is bogging you down, step away and talk to somebody. Again, resources are in the description below. On a positive note, we are blessed with an exhibition game later today between two of the best teams in the nation. I think two of the 5 best teams in the country for sure, regardless of your ranking. These two teams are awesome. We get to see a fun game. I'll be streaming live, recapping it later today. Make sure you subscribe wherever you're tuned in. We'll be breaking this one down. Very excited, win or loss, to talk about what exactly goes down here today. And hey, at the end of the day, just to remind you, win-loss doesn't matter. Let's talk about what actually goes on. I'm thrilled. Really excited to get this season underway with you guys later today. You can follow the show on Twitter at LockedOnUK. You can follow me on Twitter at LanceDawe_. And you can follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, you can leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all tonight for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And God bless.